Hello fellow drawers, how's it going? Today we're going to be looking at some art tips that can be found on Pinterest. Some of them I have been saving up for months for this specific video because I came across a lot of questionable art advice that I was like, I don't know if I agree with that. Other ones are just gonna be random. 99% of them can also be found on TikTok because that is where they spawn. But I don't have TikTok, so I look for alternative ways to rot my brain and annihilate that attention span. And you'll come with me, let's go. Okay, what's this one?
Let's talk about common mouth mistakes. Number 1 is forgetting the corners of the mouth. The reason she looks so uncanny is because her teeth are just going back into infinity.
Oh, yep, exactly my first thought, actually. It's like that TikTok trend, cover what ruins your face. Those damn mouth corners, man. Give this woman a break. She just returned from the mines. She was mining coal. She mined so much coal, she became coal. Honestly, I can only dream of having confidence as high as those tattoo artists who agreed to put faces of real people onto someone's body. That is crazy. Wild.
Or sometimes they will look like they're going completely across horizontally. And by corners, I mean these dark triangles that extend past the teeth. So if you're drawing a normal smile, like your outline is here, you're just going to shade in the sides like this. And this will also help you draw the lips a little bit easier because you can see where the skin is actually pulling from. For me, this made a big difference. Number 2 is outlining all the teeth, and I've talked about this before, but we don't have black in between our teeth, hopefully. So usually when you look at well-rendered portraits, you'll see that there's kind of a gap in between some of the lines. And of course, check out those corners. Okay, number 3 is outlining the lips. If all your guys look like they're wearing lipstick, this might be why. And I know this is a makeup trend, but in general, most people are not going to look like this. If there is some kind of outline, you want to extend that shadow outwards. And when there isn't, you really just want to blend it out and make that tone solid. Hope this helped, guys, and we have more resources in the bio.
Yes, these are very common mistakes people tend to make. I think it's great advice. But if you want to make some horror art and make your character look super scary, creepy, and uncanny, then just do the exact opposite. Fixing your line art. POV, your sketch looks like this when zoomed in. Like what? Like a digital drawing made of pixels? Yeah, no shit. Every single digital image is made of pixels. That's okay. No need to fix that. But let's see what could possibly solve this problem. Oh my god! 5,000 by 6,000 pixels? Are you out of your mind? You know, 4K is like the highest resolution any digital platform allows, right? I might be wrong, but I feel like even 1080p is in most cases enough. 6K? Your iPad is gonna blow up and take off into the stratosphere. And besides the fact that having a canvas this big is going to overload your device, and this drawing is going to take thrice as much space as a regular drawing would, this is simply pointless. Here, I screenshotted. This is kind of what the full drawing looks like. It's not a portrait. We are not supposed to be looking at her eyelashes in full HD. It's a full body drawing. The face is super small and far away. This is how other people are gonna view your drawing on their phones. No one will be zooming in so much that they would see those tiny pixels in her eyes. I mean, look at this low quality piece of garbage. Psych! Ew, you better call it pixel art. Psych! What is this, Minecraft painting? Psych, you fool! 1660 by 2000 pixels look perfectly fine. Never had an issue. No matter how big you make your canvas, if you keep zooming in, you will keep seeing pixels. Like, I'm sorry, but they will be there.
Me explaining metal is easy to draw, you just have to add shadows right besides highlights.
Why do people have to add that voice? You already have the text. What's that voice for? I can read. Me explaining metal is easy to draw, you just have to add shadows right besides highlights and make random lines before blurring slightly. I mean, yeah, it's easy to draw if it's this perfectly even cylinder block, but what if it's a full set of armor that is all curving and moving? Then what? Don't look at me, I'm looking at you, I have no idea.
How to draw any face in your own style. This is for artists who try to draw a specific face but end up drawing every other boring face they've ever drawn. When you want to draw a specific person, the most important thing to keep in mind is the magic triangle. The proportions and features in this triangle are what make a person a person. This way you can still start off with the same base that you usually use. For example, I took Zendaya's features and drew them. Even though this isn't a photorealistic drawing, you can still tell that this is supposed to be Zendaya. Obviously, I have exaggerated features like her long neck and her smaller eyes and long eyelashes and her eyebrows, but bottom line, this is Zendaya. It's going to take lots of practice, so keep drawing your favorite celebrities. All you need to remember is remember the magic triangle and exaggerate those features.
This is actually a very interesting tip that I haven't seen anyone talk about before. Because most TikTok art tips are just the same 3 tips being repeated over and over again, it feels like. But this one I think can actually be super useful. A little hairstyle change occurred. Let's move on.
Hey, here's some weird art tips I learned in school. The first is when you're drawing a person from reference, do the head last. And this is because we naturally want to make the head huge compared to the body.
Yeah, I mean, if it helps, it helps. It might make it easier for some people, but if you're drawing traditionally, then make sure you at least roughly mark the size of the head to make sure you have enough space on your canvas.
The second is that you gotta simplify everything into boxes. The head's facing one way, the torso's facing one way, and the nips are like the eyes of the torso. They follow that line too. Simplifying that really helps.
I don't know, boxes are not for everyone. I think boxes can be useful if you're already kind of good with anatomy and know what you're doing. But for total beginners, I don't think I'd recommend boxes because they can be confusing and make the body look very stiff and, well, boxy. And human bodies are not stiff at all. They are very dynamic, very curvy and fluid. And I feel like a box shape would just restrain a lot of that movement. But everyone has their own approach, and if boxes work for you, then that's great. I personally prefer using other shapes like bell shapes and trapezoids and other rules and guidelines that help me build my bodies. I talked about all of that in my anatomy tutorial, so you can go check it out later if you want to see what I'm talking about.
Next is that you got to identify the joints. Because when we're looking at a foreshortened arm, our lizard brains are like, no, it can't possibly be that short. But look at that distance, man, it's shorter than his hand.
Yes, always draw circles for the joints, although I don't think drawing the joints is going to make foreshortening much easier. Foreshortening is really hard, it's really, really hard. I'm still struggling with it, it breaks my brain sometimes.
The next is that when you're drawing hands, make sure they're the size of the face. I know it's weird.
Yeah, that's true. Hands are the size of the face. If only you're not drawing a small child, then their head is going to be super huge and their hands are going to be super tiny.
Ooh, and a huge facial tip is to draw the nose first. If you can get the nose, you can get the rest of the face. Because that nose provides a central reference for everything.
I've never heard of that. I don't know. I personally would not say this is a good idea. Again, sure, if you're an anatomy expert and have your entire portrait painting process all figured out, then you might as well start painting your face from the ass, and I'm sure it will turn out wonderful. But in general, starting and drawing with any facial part is probably not gonna be good. It will make it so much harder and the facial proportions will be all over the place. It's the same as they mentioned with the head. If you start drawing the head first, the head will most likely look super huge. And the same issue would probably occur with the face. If you start drawing a face from the nose will most likely look super huge. I'd say start drawing the face from the face shape. Just draw the circle, draw the face shape, draw all the guidelines and symmetry lines, build this carcass for your face, and only then start adding the facial features. This! Some time ago, someone on Instagram left a comment like, oh, are you that artist who drew their chibi vampire OC? Or something like that. Because I also drew my OCs as chibis. And I was like, no, I unfortunately don't have a vampire OC, you must be mistaking me for someone. But I guess this is what they were talking about. I'm 90% sure that this is it. This style looks amazing, by the way, my lord. I don't know either. You know, sometimes I stress myself out over making short form content because I have a mindset that I have to make something meaningful, something well edited or funny or whatever. But then I see stuff like this and I get the realization that this is what 90% of short form content is. Just pure silly nothing. No meaning, no thought, just nothing. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I just personally have to constantly keep that in mind in order to not put so much pressure on myself over what I post.
Coloring and shading is a lot harder for me to explain, but here's some tips that'll help make it a little easier. Alright, so we're going to start with flat colors. Alright, so we already know to use lighter colors for our flats. Every single art tutorial mentions that.
I mean, if your character is outside in the daylight, then the flat color should be light. If your character is in a dark room lit by a single candle, then the flat color should be dark. The darkness, the saturation, and the hue of your flat colors depends solely on the lighting scenario and the surroundings of your character. I don't know which tutorials are telling you to only use light flat colors. That doesn't seem legit.
But what I hear a lot of tutorials not mention is that our flat colors shouldn't be saturated as well.
What? Maybe tutorials don't mention it because that's just not a thing.
For those who don't know what this is, it's basically how intense a color is. Like say for example, if I wanted to give this red more saturation, I'm going to drag it more to the right. We do not want to do this when picking our flat color, mainly because it's going to really mess up our shading process.
How? How is it gonna mess up your shading process? No, it won't.
Now look, a lot of saturation versus barely any saturation. See which one looks better?
Are they trolling? If they're trolling, then like fine. But I'm not on TikTok, so I'm unfamiliar with this person and their content style. But I mean, I don't even think it's necessary to point out just how silly and inaccurate this is. No, neither of them looks better or worse. The difference is that this girl has red hair and this one has gray hair. This is so stupid, it makes me mad. Because this is misinformation for young, impressionable artists who are gonna see this and think that the only right way to paint is to use 50 shades of gray in their drawing. And don't get me wrong, it's not wrong to use only desaturated palettes for your drawings. A lot of artists do that. That's their signature style, that's what they prefer, and it looks awesome. There are also a lot of artists who use neon, bright ass, nuclear, eye bleeding colors. And guess what? Their drawings also look sick as fuck. And this red that they're showing is not even saturated at all. This is like a deep, dark red. What are you even talking about? I think this person is confusing something. The only rule that can be applied to your base colors is keeping all of them on pretty much the same saturation level. So if you're using saturated colors, then make all base colors equally saturated. If you're using desaturated colors, then make all the colors equally desaturated. Because when the color saturation levels are uneven, the drawing might end up looking incohesive and dirty, or just cheap, like those knockoff toys and figurines where you can tell they clearly didn't bother to find the right shade of plastic, so the colors look off and don't really match together, and it looks kind of like color wise looks really cheap. By the way, no, absolutely no hate to the creator. I just really disagree with the first part of this video.
3, 2, 1, go!
Okay, with this head-on angle of the face, it kind of does make sense to copy and paste an eye or use the symmetry tool, but it stops working as soon as you turn the head. This is not how eyes work. This is what the face would look like if it was completely flat, like a whiteboard, and you just drew these symmetrical eyes on a whiteboard and then just turned the board. You know what I mean? It doesn't look as jarring here because there is no face, but if you were to put these eyes on a face, you would see how really uncanny it looks. The eye that is further away should not become like super small. They are pretty much the same width. It just becomes a little shorter horizontally because the eyes are pretty close to each other on the face, so there is no crazy perspective warping where one eye will be like 5 times bigger than the other. Only if you're not using like a fisheye type lens perspective, but that is a completely different story. Draw these parallel lines to make sure the width of the eye is correct, and then only change the length. And the eyelids should be curving in one direction, and here they're curving in different directions, so it looks like the character is cross-eyed. No, not the Springtrap Thirst Trap. No. I'm currently rewatching all the FNAF Markiplier playthroughs, so I cannot take this right now. Now this is good. This is amazing. Screenshot, screen record. This is such a simple cel shaded reference, but it's literally every single dramatic lighting scenario you could possibly need. Thank you to whoever made this. This is so useful.
If you have ever drawn, you better not be making these mistakes. My name's Jack, I'm a pro artist. I'm going to show you 3 common mistakes and why you shouldn't be making them. This goes fast to screenshot, download, or record.
Okay. Number 1, not figure drawing. Every artist should be either gesture drawing or figure drawing. Use sites like Line of Action and Pinterest. This increase the speed and quality in which you can draw bodies. Also helps strengthen your observation skills, which will benefit in all areas of art. Now, what's the difference between gesture drawing and figure drawing? Gesture drawing is a type of drawing that prioritizes flowing movement, resulting in sketchy, fluid lines with less defined shapes and contour drawing. Most gesture drawings uses the human figure as the subject, making it a type of figure drawing. Interesting. Okay, here's a better definition. Simply put, figure drawing is a term used to refer to any and every drawing of the human body. Gesture drawing is a quick and simple exercise where you draw the human figure in a few strokes as possible. By definition, gesture drawing is actually a type of figure drawing. Got it. To be honest, I don't think I've ever practiced gesture drawing, and I don't think I've ever used a photo of a real human body as a reference. I only use like stylized poses. I did some portrait studies last year for like a week, but besides that, I've never really practiced realism, I realize. Okay, number 2, not using reference. It is not cool or respected to not use reference. All of the pros use reference when drawing, designing. Not using references make you weak as an artist, and your designs will lose believability. Don't brag about this, pros care more that you reference the real world. Yes, this one I 100% agree with. You need to use references. You cannot draw something from imagination if you have never actually purposefully sat down and observed that object. Where are you gonna pull that from? From your head? From your ass? You don't have that information in you. We're not robots. We don't have photographic memory where we could see an object once and have a 3D scan of it saved in our brain forever. And if you keep drawing without a reference, you will just keep repeating the same mistakes over and over again. So please use references, it is so important. Number 3, not drawing through. Draw through your forms. Break the subject into basic forms. Use these forms to accurately place the subject in 3D space. Make sure every line connects even if it's not visible or behind something else. Except for the freaking typos, yes, this is so good. Yes, your drawing is technically 2D, but the object or the person that you're drawing is still 3D. It's not Peppa Pig. If you're drawing a character in big, loose clothing, then look through that clothing. Make sure the body underneath that clothing looks right, even if it's not visible. Imagine you're drawing as a 3D model and try to turn it around in your head to see if it makes sense.
Let me give you a tip on placing hands better.
Alright, so I made a little quick scribble of a pose.
Oh my god, that is a scribble of a pose if I've ever seen one.
In this example, what I want to do is draw her putting her hand on her forehead. One thing that might make this harder for me is drawing the arm first and then trying to draw the hand. See, right now, once I got to the hand, it doesn't really connect to the head like how I want it to. Alright, so instead of drawing the arm first, let's just make a little round shape for the hand. Then we can draw the arm afterwards. Let me just draw out a few lines to help map it, and then just scribble in an arm. Now look, that works a lot better.
Yes, this is 10 out of 10 advice. Draw the hand in a pose you need first, and then draw the arm and connect it to the shoulder. I do that all the time. It makes it so much easier. I'm being way too harsh on myself, because I'm over here making tutorials thinking, man, am I explaining this right? Do people understand me? Is what I'm saying even helpful? Or is it too hard to understand or too obvious and useless when all you gotta do to draw the mouth is step 1, draw the mouth, and step 2, add teeth and tongue? Duh, what are you, stupid? If I'm a beginner artist seeing this, I guess I go fuck myself then. If step 1 for drawing the mouth is to draw the mouth, then I guess I'll go run into a brick wall. Oh my god, there is a step 4. Oh my god. See? Not everything has to be a tutorial. You can just flex your art and be done. If you want to make a tutorial, then spend at least some time on it. Make some sort of structure. Make an education plan. Make it make sense. Explain how and why you do what you do. And if you don't want to do that, then just don't. You don't have to make tutorials to be an artist. But don't call this a tutorial because you're not explaining anything. Just call it my drawing process. Simple as that. Well, I mean, it depends on the kind of composition and setting you're going for. If your character is in perspective-heavy pose, where some parts are further away or closer than others, then yes, it can make sense to blur them a little, but it is very easy to over-blur and make the drawing look worse. So, I don't know. I wouldn't say it will automatically make your drawing fancy, so I wouldn't rely on it too much.
Wow, congratulations. You got some new art tools for Christmas. But wait, just wait a second. Even with all of the wonderful things about digital art, there's a few things that newer artists should try to avoid. First thing to avoid is the symmetry ruler. While it's not inherently bad, creating a finished drawing with the symmetry ruler can leave your drawings looking stiff and unnatural. Real faces have a good deal of asymmetry, so creating a perfectly symmetrical face is a little unnerving. Not to mention, having all your drawings from directly head-on can be pretty boring. The second thing I want to talk about is color palette. Having access to too many colors can be a little overwhelming. It's a good idea to go online and find a color palette you like. Drawing with limited color gives a sense of unity. Lastly, try to avoid stamp brushes like this. They can be helpful for filling in a background, but keep in mind that they're not going to mesh stylistically with your artwork. This can lead to your work looking a bit disjointed and you having an even more difficult time finding your style drawing environmental objects. You're better off drawing backgrounds in a way that suits your own art style.
Yes, oh my god, yes. Gorgeous art style and top tier advice. I cannot express how satisfying this video was. And on top of that, it doesn't have that nasty AI voiceover or any of those annoying TikTok music sounds with Vocaloid dubstep font remix that makes my ears bleed. It's perfect. Thank you, Prof. Comic Book Man. I wish you and your family luck, wealth, and eternal happiness for the work you do. I'm in love with this type of art style. Head over heels in love. I'd say let's end on this sweet positive note, shall we? That's enough TikTok for me for the next few months. This is what you're gonna look like if you watch too much TikTok. It's sad, but it's true. Anyways, thank you for going through this with me. If you enjoyed this video, then press like, subscribe. I have other fun videos like this on my channel, as well as some tutorials that you might find useful, so you can go watch those if you want. Or if you just want to look at the art that I make, then you can check me out on Instagram. And good night, good day, goodbye.